You're 2 years into retirement, and the numbers aren't quite adding up the way you thought they would. Your pension covers the basics, Social Security helps, but between the property tax increase, the new prescription your doctor added, and wanting to visit your grandkids twice this year instead of once, you're feeling the squeeze. Not a crisis, not yet, but that slow, creeping awareness that your fixed income isn't stretching as far as it did last year. And next year? That's the part that keeps you up at night. You worked for 40 years. You did everything right. And now you're sitting here trying to figure out how to make your retirement actually feel like retirement instead of just careful budgeting with no room to breathe. Here's something that might surprise you. The most successful retirees I worked with during my 2 decades in institutional finance weren't the ones with the biggest portfolios. They were the ones who found small, sustainable ways to add income streams without turning retirement into a second career. Not because they were desperate, because they were smart. They understood that a few hundred extra dollars a month creates breathing room. And breathing room creates peace of mind. My name is David Harrington. I spent over 2 decades as an investment banking analyst and portfolio strategist, navigating market cycles, recessions, and financial bubbles. After stepping away from institutional finance, I now focus on helping everyday people, especially those approaching or enjoying retirement, understand money in a calm, practical way. Before we continue, a quick note. This isn't financial advice. Everyone's situation is different. Think of this as education to help you ask better questions and make calmer decisions. By the end of this video, you'll understand 7 practical ways to supplement your fixed retirement income. Strategies that don't require you to go back to full-time work, don't put your principal at risk, and don't sacrifice the comfort and freedom you spent decades working toward. If you find this helpful, please subscribe and hit the like button. It helps more people find this content when they need it most. And turn on notifications so you don't miss future videos. Let's talk about what actually works. The first thing to understand is what I mean by supplementing versus replacing your income. You're not looking to recreate your working salary. You're looking for what I call margin money. Enough to cover the unexpected expenses, the small luxuries that make life enjoyable, and the breathing room that lets you make decisions without panic. For most retirees, that's somewhere between $300 and $800 a month. Not transformational money, but the difference between constant stress and comfortable living. The traditional financial advice here is usually part-time work or consulting in your old field. And for some people, that works beautifully. But here's what that advice misses. You retired for a reason. Maybe your body can't handle the physical demands anymore. Maybe you're tired of the politics, the commute, the structure of someone else's schedule. Maybe you want actual retirement, time with grandchildren, pursuing hobbies, sleeping past 6 a.m. because you finally can. So let me share what I've seen work for people who want income without sacrificing what retirement is supposed to feel like. The first strategy is dividend-focused investing within your existing portfolio. Now, I'm not suggesting you chase high-yield stocks or completely restructure everything you own. What I am saying is this. If you already have investments, there's often an opportunity to tilt slightly toward dividend-paying stocks or funds that generate regular income without requiring you to sell shares. Here's why this matters. Let's say you have $400,000 in your investment accounts. If that money is entirely in growth stocks that don't pay dividends, you're forced to sell shares every time you need cash. But if even a portion of that, say $150,000, is in quality dividend-paying stocks yielding 3 to 4%, that's $4,500 to $6,000 per year, about $375 to $500 per month. Money that shows up without you selling a single share. The psychological difference is enormous. You're not depleting your principal. You're collecting income your investments generate naturally. During my years managing institutional portfolios, I watched countless retirees sleep better simply because they could see money arriving in their account regularly without having to liquidate holdings during a market downturn. This isn't about chasing yield. High yields often signal high risk. This is about quality companies with long dividend histories, the kind that have increased their payouts for 20, 30, even 50 consecutive years. Procter & Gamble, Johnson & Johnson, companies that have been paying dividends since your grandparents were young. Boring, perhaps, but boring works when you need reliability. The second strategy is what I call strategic asset repositioning for income. This sounds complicated, but it's actually quite simple. You probably have money sitting in savings accounts or CDs earning almost nothing. Maybe you're holding cash because you're worried about market volatility, or because that's where your emergency fund lives, or simply because you've always been conservative. What I saw work well for retirees is creating a ladder of short-term bonds or bond funds specifically for income generation. Not your emergency cash, that stays liquid, but money you know you won't need for 6 months, a year, 2 years. Instead of earning 0.5% in a savings account, you could potentially earn 3 to 5% in short-term treasury bonds or highly rated corporate bonds. Here's a real example. A retired couple I knew had $100,000 sitting in a savings account earning basically nothing. They didn't need immediate access to all of it. They had a separate emergency fund. We talked about moving $60,000 into a ladder of short-term bonds maturing every few months. Suddenly, they had an extra $200 to $250 per month in interest income. Not from taking big risks, from simply putting idle money to work in a way that matched their actual needs. The third strategy is renting out space you're not using. I know what you're thinking. You don't want strangers in your home. You don't want to deal with Airbnb headaches. You value your privacy. I get it. But hear me out on a few variations that work differently. If you have a spare bedroom you never use, a long-term renter, maybe a graduate student, a young professional, someone quiet who works during the day, could bring in $600 to $1,200 per month, depending on your area. Not a revolving door of weekend guests. One stable person with a lease. I've seen this work beautifully for retirees who actually enjoy having someone else in the house occasionally, someone to help with small tasks, someone whose presence makes the house feel less empty. Or consider your garage, your driveway, even your basement if it's finished and separate. Storage rental platforms let you rent and used space to people who need it. Park a boat or RV in your driveway 4 months a year for $200 a month. Let someone store boxes in your basement for $100 a month. Small amounts, but they add up. Or if you live near a tourist destination, event venue, or medical facility, short-term parking rental can be surprisingly lucrative. People will pay $20 to $30 a day to park in your driveway when there's a festival downtown or a concert at the arena. Do that 10 days a month, and you've added $200 to $300 with almost no effort. The fourth strategy is selling knowledge you've accumulated over a lifetime. This isn't consulting in your old field necessarily. This is the skills you take for granted because you've been doing them for 40 years without thinking about it. Maybe you're exceptional at woodworking, gardening, cooking traditional recipes from your heritage, organizing and decluttering, basic home repair, or teaching people how to use technology. What feels ordinary to you is valuable to someone trying to learn it. Online platforms now make this remarkably accessible. You could create a small online course teaching your skill, record it once, sell it repeatedly. You could offer local workshops through community centers or your church. You could write simple how-to guides and sell them as digital downloads for $10 to $15 each. I watched a retired accountant who thought his career skills were obsolete start teaching basic tax preparation to young adults through evening classes at the community college. 3 hours a week during tax season, $800 a month. He loved it because the students were grateful and eager, completely different from his corporate clients who'd been demanding and stressed. He wasn't working. He was sharing what he knew with people who appreciated it. The fifth strategy is dividend income from real estate investment trusts, REITs, without the headaches of being a landlord. This is a middle ground between owning rental property and having no real estate exposure at all. REITs are companies that own and operate income-producing real estate. Apartment buildings, shopping centers, medical facilities, warehouses. By law, they must distribute 90% of their taxable income to shareholders as dividends. You buy shares like you would a stock, you collect dividends, you never fix a leaky roof or deal with a difficult tenant. The yields vary, but many quality REITs pay 3 to 5% annually. Put $100,000 into a diversified REIT fund, and you might collect $3,000 to $5,000 per year. That's $250 to $415 per month. Not speculation. Income from actual buildings generating actual rent from actual tenants, professionally managed by people whose job it is to keep those properties occupied and profitable. The diversification matters here. You don't want to put all your money into one REIT focused on one property type in one city. Spread it across different types of real estate different geographical areas. The same principle applies to REITs as to any investment. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. The sixth strategy is what I call micro-entrepreneurship, small business activities that generate income without the overhead and stress of a traditional business. This could be selling items on Etsy if you make crafts, offering pet sitting in your neighborhood, providing errand services for other seniors who can't drive, or even something as simple as buying items at estate sales and reselling them online. The key difference between this and starting a business is scale and commitment. You're not building something to sell or to grow into a full-time operation. You're creating a small, manageable income stream that fits into your life rather than taking it over. I knew a retired teacher who started buying books at library sales and reselling them on Amazon. She spent maybe 5 hours a week on it, browsing sales, listing books, shipping orders. She made $400 to $600 a month. More importantly, she enjoyed it. The treasure hunt of finding valuable books, the satisfaction of connecting readers with books they wanted. It didn't feel like work because it was interesting to her. The seventh strategy is strategic Social Security timing if you haven't claimed yet. This isn't about supplementing income you already have. It's about maximizing the income you'll receive for the rest of your life by waiting to claim if you can afford to. Every year you delay claiming Social Security between age 62 and 70, your benefit increases by roughly 6 to 8%. If your full retirement age benefit is $2,000 per month, but you can wait until 70, you could receive closer to $2,480 per month, an extra $480 every single month for the rest of your life. Now, this only works if you have other income or savings to live on while you wait. But if you're supplementing with some of these other strategies, even modest additional income might give you the breathing room to delay claiming and lock in a permanently higher benefit. That's not just income today. That's protected, inflation-adjusted income for potentially 20 to 30 years. Here's what surprised me when I left Wall Street and started working with everyday retirees. The people who thrived weren't the ones with massive portfolios. They were the ones who were creative, flexible, and willing to think about income in non-traditional ways. They understood that retirement doesn't have to mean your income is frozen forever at whatever your pension and Social Security provide. The common thread in all these strategies is sustainability. You're not burning yourself out. You're not taking enormous risks with your principal. You're not sacrificing your health or your time with family. You're making small, intelligent adjustments that create the margin you need to actually enjoy retirement. Let me be very clear about something. None of these strategies requires you to go back to the stress and demands of your working years. None of them puts your core retirement savings at risk. What they do require is a willingness to think differently about how money can work for you in this phase of life. The biggest mistake I see retirees make is assuming their income is completely fixed and there's nothing they can do about it except spend less. That leads to a retirement that feels like deprivation instead of freedom. The second biggest mistake is going to the opposite extreme, taking big risks chasing high returns because they're worried about running out of money. That leads to anxiety and sometimes devastating losses. The middle path, small, sustainable income additions that don't require sacrificing comfort, is where peace of mind lives. An extra $400 here, $300 there, maybe $500 from another source. Suddenly you have an additional $1,200 per month. That's the difference between constant financial stress and comfortable living. That's the difference between feeling trapped by your budget and feeling free to make choices that bring you joy. Think about what that would mean for you specifically. An extra $1,000 per month. Would that let you visit your grandchildren more often? Take that trip you've been putting off. Help your kids when they need it without worrying about your own finances. Simply sleep better knowing you have breathing room when unexpected expenses arrive. Here's what I want you to take away from this. Your fixed income doesn't have to stay fixed. You have options. They don't all involve going back to work in the traditional sense. They don't all require you to become an entrepreneur or take big risks with your savings. What they do require is opening your mind to the possibility that small changes can create meaningful improvements in your financial comfort. Start with one strategy, just one. Maybe it's repositioning some idle cash into short-term bonds. Maybe it's renting out that spare bedroom to a graduate student. Maybe it's finally creating that online course teaching the skill you've perfected over 40 years. Pick the one that feels most natural to you, the one that fits your personality and circumstances. Because here's the truth. The quality of your retirement isn't determined solely by the size of your nest egg. It's determined by how effectively you create sustainable income that supports the life you actually want to live. And sometimes that means getting creative in ways traditional financial planning never discusses. Your future self, the one enjoying retirement without constant money stress, the one visiting grandchildren without guilt, the one sleeping peacefully knowing there's margin in the budget. That person is counting on you to take action today. Start now. Pick one strategy. Make one small change. Watch how it creates breathing room in your life. You've earned this retirement. Now make it work the way you deserve.